Hi, I'm Jonathan Tessier, and we're back here for another episode of Wellness Wisdom, and I'm here with Rebecca. How you doing, Rebecca?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And so today we're going to be continuing our series about the gut microbiome and fiber. And on this episode specifically, we're going to be talking about how you can increase the fiber in your diet without going too overboard. Because if you go too much at once, it can be disastrous, as some of us already know. So let's get into it. Like, how can we increase fiber into our diet without overloading?
So that's something that you definitely want to go low and slow with. It's going to depend on where your diet's at now. You might kind of have an idea of how you tolerate fiber, or you might have an idea that you maybe don't tolerate fiber so well. So it's going to depend on the person, but you want to start low and slow. It's not something that, if you don't really eat a lot of veg, you don't want to go to a plant-based chili of like all these different fibers in one. That could be disastrous, like you said, or at very least uncomfortable. So going low and slow, and remembering like it's a long game, right? You kind of want to, you want to work up to it. Think of increasing your gut health or improving your microbiome. It's like flexing a muscle, right? It takes a little bit of time. You have to get used to it. Not only do your gut bugs have to get used to kind of what you're feeding them, but getting used to cooking different foods, buying different foods, how to prep them, all that kind of thing. So a good way to start is adding 3 different kind of foods in each week, just to start slow. Food sensitivities or irritations, they can take, a little while to show up. It's not necessarily going to be, I've had lunch and an hour later I'll know it either went well or it didn't. It can take a couple days, a few days. So starting slow and then with the same thing. So a good example might be choosing like 3 foods that you're going to add this week. So one might be oats. That's a really great one because they're quite well tolerated. One might be like a berry. So maybe you're choosing like a raspberry. And then one might be a mixed green or a green of some kind. So maybe choosing kind of that to add in a week. And then experimenting with those 3 things a few different ways in that week, see how you do. And then maybe adding 3 different ones in the next week. That's kind of a nice way to edge into it. There's lots of different strategies out there, but that's a nice, simple way to start.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've done it myself. I've tried eating some foods, and you just do too much at once, and your stomach starts to hurt. So
exactly, and then you don't want to have it.
Exactly. Yeah, then you're turned off. Okay. So I've heard that there's a thing where like, you take 30 new plants a week, and that seems like a lot, but it might not actually be that bad.
Yeah. So that's the it was called the American Gut Project. So they introduced 30 different. Doesn't necessarily have to be new, but 30 different plants in a week. And they found that people that were consuming 30 different kind of plant foods in a week just had better health outcomes, more diverse microbiome. So that's kind of a really fun way. And it can be fun. That, like you said, it does sound like a lot. 30 sounds like a lot, but it can be a fun way to kind of introduce things into your diet. And again, using that idea maybe of 3 each week, and as you go, you might be able to increase that number as you learn what you tolerate. Just working your way up to that. Yeah,
absolutely. So like you can get like veg, like some of the stuff we have here, like we got squash and like tomatoes and garlic. That kind of stuff can help. Like,
exactly. Yeah, your fruit, your veggies. What's kind of cool is spices count. They've got polyphenols in there as well. I don't know if you remember from our video in coffee, it's really polyphenol rich.
Right.
You could take that as one of your 30 plants as well.
Okay.
Other things that count, of course, your whole grains, your beans, nuts and seeds. So all your kind of whole foods do count. And something, for example, like if you get a spring mix, when I have 4 or 5 different kind of types of greens in there, that counts as your 4 or 5, not necessarily just one. So again, it's really not as hard as maybe that 30 sounds like. I thought what we could maybe do is, I have a meal that I ate yesterday. We can count the plant foods, and I don't know if you've got one that made yesterday or recently that you'd want to count.
Sure, we'll talk about it. So so yesterday I made a pork chop, and I had potatoes with it, and I had some corn, some sweet corn with it.
Yeah.
So that's about 2
you got 2 there.
I got
exactly.
2. Yeah,
exactly. And that's where this is where kind of a lot of us are starting, right? So you got 2 there, and where could we go from there? So you said your corn and your potatoes. So maybe throwing in just a side salad. You could probably add an additional, again, not all at once, maybe you're working up to that, an additional 5, if not more, in a little side salad you added to your plate there. Yeah.
And that's just one meal. That's like 7 in one meal, right? So that's you get, and then to my breakfast I could add some, and and then to my lunch I could add some.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when you put it all together, it's really is a lot easier than it seems.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
sure.
that's like 30 in a week. So a really great way to do it are things like chilies and stir fries.
Yeah.
For example, my stir fry yesterday, I had rice in my stir fry, edamame. What else did we have? Some corn in my stir fry as well. I would have cooked with some onion and some garlic. What else would have I had? But I mean, that's 5 right there, and kind of in a stir fry or a chili, as I mentioned, those kinds of things. Smoothies are great ways to really kind of diversify, and just remembering that, like, I think we all like our routine, which is so important, but if we're having the same smoothie every day, we're maybe not getting that diversity. So switching it up kind of thing, or making different chili recipes, that kind of thing, again, aiming for that diversity, and with that goal eventually of having those 30 different plant foods in a week. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So for those of us who do eat a lot of plant foods, like 15 to 20 plant foods a week, what would be a good diet plan for someone like that?
So what you want to make sure that you have on your plate would be like a plant base of some kind. So maybe that's your quinoa or your rice or something like that. Maybe it's a bed of mixed greens. So you've got your plant base. You want to make sure that you've got color on your plate, whether that's your green veg, maybe it's a little bit of like beets, just making sure you've got color for that diversity as well. Right. Another nice thing to include is like a fiber booster. So maybe that's like ground flax or chia or something you're kind of just sprinkling on your already existing meal. Right. That's a great way to boost up. And then your fermented foods are going to be really important as well. So adding something a little bit on the side of your plate or within your meal, like kimchi or sauerkraut or yogurt, a fermented food adding in there. So kind of for our more experienced fiber consumers, that would be like an up-level goal that you could really reach for to really improve your microbiome.
So is there anything else you want to remind our audience about like fiber and all that stuff?
Yeah, so the consistency beats the intensity, right? So slowly layering these things in, it's going to take some time. Be really kind to yourself. Stress does no good for your microbiome either. The other thing I would say is if you are kind of really experiencing some trouble as you're introducing some of these things, there can be lots of different things kind of going on in the gut. It could be as simple as just need some time for those little guys to get used to the food that you're giving them, but things can be maybe wrong. Kind of that's when you may want to reach out to a practitioner, whether it's your doctor, naturopath, nutritionist, dietitian, and just kind of see if you can get a little bit of support in figuring out what might be really going on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's best to always take things slow, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's going to do it for us. That was a lot of great information, but we'll be back with another episode very soon. So make sure to ask your questions in the comments and let us know what else you want us to talk about. So yeah, that's it.